Billy Hush. Hi, good morning, Key West. Good morning, Key West. Good morning, Key West. How y'all doing this morning? I heard y'all had black people here this year. Where all the black people at? Let me hear you scream. All right, black people, what's up? How y'all doing? I know y'all want to hear the great poems of the 21st century, but I'm going to say a few things and then I'll read some poems for you. Is that okay? Can I do that? So I just wanted y'all to know, when I was, very young, an adult, but still very young, I would always read on emails, and then as social media began to grow, throughout social media, everything that was going on at the Key West Literary Seminars in January. It would stress me out. I'd be like, they're having all that fun, and I don't get to play. I could not afford it. I'm like, Key West, where is that? Florida? So I'm serious. It was like, oh, the Key West Literary Seminars, Billy Collins is there. Do y'all know what I'm saying? So I never thought that I would get the opportunity to read at Key West, and I had my first opportunity to read for y'all last year, this time. Yeah, I had a great time. And when I came here, I was so nervous. I remember that right before my reading, I think I read at 9:30 last year as well, in the morning, although y'all know I don't know what 9:30 looks like at home. Anyway, at 9:30 in the morning, at like 9:27, I was right out there walking the circle, hoping I don't throw up, because I'm always so nervous to read. Nobody ever believes me when I tell them this, but I promise you. And I don't know if anybody ever told Arlo this. I was out there walking the circle, hoping I don't throw up, and then it was my time to go. So I went straight to the stage. I was like, anxiety's not gonna get me. I went straight to the stage and I started talking. Y'all know what I mean? I made a joke about this the other day to Arlo. I should apologize. I don't see Arlo. Oh, hi, Arlo. I should apologize for that joke that I made. I just wanted you to know I wasn't really just walking up at 9:30. I was here at like 9:12 last year. Now, this year I got here at 9:17. I was a little late. But I say all that to say I'm really grateful to Key West. I know people keep apologizing to me for the weather. It is 34 degrees in Atlanta where I live. I can deal. I'm all right. This is good. This is good weather. Thank y'all so much for it. Thank you particularly to Arlo and to the board. And Michael Blades, who's like my dad, he takes such good care of me. Let's give this board a hand clap. And if it's okay with you, I'm just gonna read some poems. Can I read you some poems? I appreciate that. It's a good way to start the morning. It's a good way to start. I always start my morning with poems, so I'm glad I get to start yours with some poems too. Where I'm from, we always begin with prayer, so I'm going to begin with a poem that is also a prayer. Prayer of the backhanded. Not the palm, not the pear tree switch, not the broomstick, nor the closest extension cord, not his braided belt, but God bless the back of my daddy's hand, which, holding nothing tightly against me and not wrapped in leather, eliminated the air between itself and my cheek. Make full this dimpled cheek, unworthy of its unfisted print, and forgive my forgetting the love of a hand hungry for reflex, a hand that took no thought of its target, like hail from a blind sky, involuntary, fast but brutal in its bruising. Father, I bear the bridge of what might have been a broken nose. I lift to you what was a busted lip. Bless the boy who believes his best beatings lack intention, the mark of the beast. Bring back to life the son who glories in the sin of immediacy, calling it love. God, save the man whose arm, like an angel's invisible wing, may fly backward in fury, whether or not his son stands near. Help me hold in place my blazing jaw as I think to say, Excuse me. I want y'all to know that I am holding my books down for dear life. Labor. I spent what light Saturday sent sweating and learned to cuss cutting grass for women kind enough to say they couldn't tell the damn difference between their mowed lawns and their vacuumed carpets just before handing over a $5 bill rolled tighter than a joint and asking me in to change a few light bulbs. I called those women old because they wouldn't move out of a chair without my help or walk without a hand at the base of their backs. I called them old, and they must have been. They're all dead now, dead and in the earth I once tended. The loneliest people have the earth to love, and not one friend their own age, only mothers to baby them and big sisters to boss them around. Women you want to please and pray for the chance to say please to. I don't do that kind of work anymore. My job is to look at the childhood I hated and say, I once had something to do with my hands. I'm from a place called Louisiana where we have our own language. I didn't realize that we had words that did not exist in the dictionary until I moved away to San Diego, California. When I was in San Diego, I learned about myself that I have an accent. Who would have thought? So I'm going to read you a poem that's titled after one of those phrases that we only use in Louisiana. The phrase is 4 in the morning. And if you do not know that phrase, you will know it by the end of the poem. You will know exactly what that phrase means. 4 in the morning. My mother grew morning glories that spilled onto the walkway toward her porch because she was a woman with land who showed as much by giving it color. She told me I could have whatever I worked for. That means she was an American. But she'd say it was because she believed in God. I am ashamed of America and confounded by God. I thank God for my citizenship in spite of the timer set on my life to write these words. I love my mother. I love black women who plant flowers as sheepish as their sons. By the time the blooms unfurl themselves for a few hours of light, the women who tend them are already at work. Blue. I'll never know who started the lie that we are lazy, but I'd love to wake that bastard up at 4 in the morning, toss him in a truck, and drive him under God past every bus stop in America to see all those black folk waiting to go work for whatever they want. A house, a boy to keep the lawn cut, some color in the yard. My God, we leave things green. It's okay if you don't give me an applause because this banner right here is interested in giving me an applause through my whole poem. It makes me so happy. I'm often asked how I go about writing my poems. This next poem, every line of this poem is the most unoriginal poem I've ever written. Every line of this poem comes from a phrase or a sentence that I heard someone say when I was growing up in the school where I was growing up, in the neighborhood where I was growing up, and in the church where I was growing up. Autobiography. Keep the lines steady. Keep your back straight. Keep coming back for more. Keep fucking with me, Cletus. Keep putting your hands on me like that and you'll always have a place to lay your head. Keep my waistline down. Keep your figure up. Keep your man happy. Keep a woman crazy. Keep your daddy off your mama, or next time I'm calling the police. Keep these nappy-headed children off my green, green grass. Keep talking smart if you want to. Keep looking at my man and I'll cut you a new eyelid. Keep looking me in my face when you tell your next lie. Keep on walking, I ain't talking to you anymore. Keep holding that last note. Keep singing while I get the splinter out. Keep singing for Jesus, baby, and everything will be all right. Keep me in your prayers. Keep us in your thoughts. Keep your eyes on the black one. He ain't got no sense. Keep your money in your pocket, Nelson. These hoes giving it away. Keep this one occupied. I'll get his wallet. Keep on living, honey, and you'll get old too. Somewhere in the course of this reading, I'm reading some new poems, and you'll know that I'm reading some new poems because I will stall before reading them to convince myself that it's okay to go ahead and read them. This next poem is a poem about the Jeffersons. Have any of you ever heard of a TV show called The Jeffersons? Strange things, you know, y'all watch The Jeffersons, good. So we watch The Jeffersons, and strange things happened every week. And I'm going to remind you of a strange thing that happened, and you're gonna act like it didn't happen. But that's okay, you can Google it. I ain't got to lie. Okay, how do I read my strange poem? Here we go. This is how it's gonna happen. I'm gonna use this second page. Y'all just give me 1 second. I'm having a wind emergency. I'm gonna lose that page, but when I lose it, don't worry. It was on purpose, okay? All right, here we go. It's called Sitcom. Sitcom. A rabbit tried to kill Louise once when I was a kid. I'm saying Louise now, but I'd have said Miss Louise then as she appeared on our screens once a week, wearing blues I haven't seen since. Her long hair curled, combed out, and pushed up into a volume so thick you felt both the power of an afro and the requirement of a relaxer on a woman rounder than most of her penthouse neighbors. Hair that wouldn't move no matter how much she shook when she yelled at her husband or when trapped by a man dressed as a rabbit who wielded a snub-nosed 38 special we thought scary before we knew what an AR-15 could do. Miss Louise never sang, but she had a voice that left you wondering how singing might sound on her. She was that beautiful and dark. They had a grown son. She wasn't a young woman. By the time I saw the Halloween rerun, the youngest men in my hometown had organized themselves into colors, red and blue. They were patriots, like patriots. They'd shoot, and they'd shoot each other too. They'd shoot you if you accidentally scuffed their shoes at a club or a concert. They'd shoot driving by from their cars into houses and parks. They'd sell you something so good you'd sell our TV to get more of it. And I cannot say I didn't love them. They killed my first girlfriend, a stray bullet meant for her brother, and I loved them. They killed my cousin, but some of them were my other cousins, and I still loved us in all my fear of our gold teeth and oversized dickies. They'd kill me today, yet remain a problem I mean to solve. I'm grown now. I know Louise was the star of the show, the leading lady. No writer would kill her off on a sitcom. Murder is meant for real life. Anybody can get a gun, but nobody kills Louise Jefferson. There is a place where black people don't die, a deluxe apartment in the sky. All week I worried about the next episode. Mornings I dressed myself and my little sister, making sure we wore nothing that looked like the flag. And when the appointed night fell, the jokes were still funny. The rabbit apprehended. The white rabbit didn't murder the black lady. No, not on TV. Still writing poems. Oh, that's so nice. Can you hold it? I appreciate it. I'll get it from you right after. I was just glad, it was double-sided, but I happen to have 2 copies, so it worked out. Okay, wait, I'm supposed to be reading poems, sorry. I really just wanted to talk to the people in the audience, but, it's time for another poem, sorry. For this next poem makes use of the Odyssey, because poets can't get enough of Greek myth. And there's a little bit of Gwendolyn Brooks in this poem, too. I think this poem has a debt to, Gwendolyn Brooks was one of my, let's give Gwendolyn Brooks a hand, it's okay. An occasion like this, I think it's okay to say that many of us would not be here were it not for the pioneering voice of a person like Gwendolyn Brooks, who is a person who I think influenced this poem a great deal with her very long poem, a series of sonnets called Gay Chaps at the Bar. You could check that poem out too. Hero. She never knew one of us from another, so my brothers and I grew up fighting over our mother's mind. Like sun-colored suitors in a Greek myth, we were willing to do evil. We kept chocolate around our mouths. The last of her mother's lot, she cried at funerals, cried when she whipped me. She whipped me daily. I am most interested in people who declare gratitude for their childhood beatings. None of them took what my mother gave, waking us for school with sharp slaps to our bare thighs. That side of the family is darker. I should be grateful, so I will be. No one on earth knows how many abortions happened before a woman risked her freedom by giving that risk a name, by taking it to breast. I don't know why I am alive now, that I still cannot impress the woman who whipped me into being. I turned my mother into a grandmother. She thanks me by kissing my sons. Gratitude is black. Black as a hero returning from war to a country that banked on his death. Thank God, it can't get much darker than that. As a human being, there's the happiness you have and the happiness you deserve. They sit apart from each other the way you and your mother sat on opposite ends of the sofa after an ambulance came to take your father away. Some good doctor will stitch him up, and soon an aunt will arrive to drive your mother to the hospital where she will settle next to him forever, as promised. She holds the arm of her seat as if she could fall, as if it is the only sturdy thing. And it is, since you've done what you've always wanted. You fought your father and won, marred him. He'll have a scar he can see, all because of you. And your mother, the only woman you ever cried for, must tend to it as a bride tends to her vows, forsaking all others, no matter how sore the injury. No matter how sore the injury has left you, you sit understanding yourself as a human being, finally free, now that nobody's got to love you. This next poem is titled The Word Nim. Y'all know that. This is still the South. Y'all know that word? You know Nim. Good. I'll just read it to you. Hi, I'm Jericho. I met you earlier, I think. How you doing? So Nim means that person and everyone you associate with that person. So you might say, how you doing? How's your mama, Nim? Right? You know this because I don't have to tell you. That's why I'm reading you this poem. Hope you enjoy it. And Nim, they said to say goodnight and not goodbye. Unplugged the TV when it rained. They hid money in mattresses so to sleep on decisions. Some of their children were not their children. Some of their parents had no birth dates. They could sweat a cold out of you. They'd wake without an alarm telling them to, even when the short ones reached certain shelves, even the skinny cooked animals too quick to catch. And I don't care how ugly one of them arrived. That one got married to somebody fine. They fed families with change and wiped their kitchens clean. Then another century came. People like me forgot their names. Yeah, well, thank you. But my eyes are watering because of it. So, if the tear comes to my nose, don't take the picture. But if you get tears that go this way, y'all really should be taking pictures of that. That's the kind of thing that sells books. Post that. You could tag me. On Instagram, I'm at Jericho Brown 1. On Twitter, I'm at Jericho Brown, which I find fascinating. And my name is Jericho Brown on Facebook, though. I do not like Facebook. But I still have it, you know what I mean? Oh, and I have 3 books. My most recent book is a book called The Tradition. Thank you. And before that, I had a book called The New Testament. My mom's really mad about that title. And then my first book is a book called Please. I mean, it's a book festival, so I'm supposed to tell y'all that. Somebody asked me to read bullet points. I hadn't read it in a while, but I will. I hope that person's here. Bullet points. I will not shoot myself in the head, and I will not shoot myself in the back, and I will not hang myself with a trash bag. And if I do, I promise you, I will not do it in a police car while handcuffed or in the jail cell of a town I only know the name of because I have to drive through it to get home. Yes, I may be at risk, but I promise you, I trust the maggots who live beneath the floorboards of my house to do what they must to any carcass, more than I trust an officer of the law of the land to shut my eyes like a man of God might, or to cover me with a sheet so clean my mother could have used it to tuck me in. When I kill me, I will do it the same way most Americans do. I promise you, cigarette smoke, or a piece of meat on which I choke, or so broke I freeze in one of these winters we keep calling worst. I promise if you hear of me dead anywhere near a cop, then that cop killed me. He took me from us and left my body, which is, no matter what we've been taught, greater than the settlement a city can pay a mother to stop crying, and more beautiful than the new bullet fished from the folds of my brain. It's a cough break. Say thank you. Say I'm sorry. I don't know whose side you're on, but I am here for the people who work in grocery stores that glow in the morning and close down for deep cleaning at night, right up the streets and in cities I mispronounce, in towns too tiny for my big black car to quit, and in every wide corner of Kansas where going to school means at least one field trip to a slaughterhouse. I want so little, another leather-bound book, a gimlet with a lavender gin, bread so good when I taste it I can tell you how it's made. I'd like us to rethink what it is to be a nation. I'm in a mood about America today. I have PTSD about the Lord. God save the people who work in grocery stores. They know a bit of glamour is a lot of glamour. They know how much it costs for the eldest of us to eat. Save my loves and not my sentences. Before I see them, I draw a mole near my left dimple. Add flair to the smile they can't see behind my mask. I grin or lie, or maybe I wear the mouth of a beast. I eat wild animals, while some of us grow up knowing what gnocchi is. The people who work at the grocery don't care. They say, thank you. They say, sorry, we don't sell motor oil anymore, with a grief so thick you could touch it. Go on, touch it. It is early. It is late. They have washed their hands. They have washed their hands for you, and they take the bus home. I think I have time for 2 more poems, so I'll read a duplex. Is that okay? I invented a form called the duplex. It's one of the features of my most recent book. There are several duplexes in the book. I look forward to seeing all of you write duplexes. I'm going all around the country reading duplexes with the hope that you write one. Billy, did you write your duplex in the last year? You got 1 more year left. It's kind of, Susanna, you laughing. You need to write one too. Who's written a duplex? Raise your hand high. Y'all want to know why that person wrote a duplex? Because she was in my class. Anybody else? Okay, well, let's not let this be the response. You know what? Even if I'm not invited, I'm going to find out. I'll read you a duplex. A duplex is blues, sonnet, and hustle all in one. Duplex. I begin with love, hoping to end there. I don't want to leave a messy corpse. I don't want to leave a messy corpse full of medicines that turn in the sun. Some of my medicines turn in the sun. Some of us don't need hell to be good. Those who need most need hell to be good. What are the symptoms of your sickness? Here is one symptom of my sickness. Men who love me are men who miss me. Men who leave me are men who miss me in the dream where I am an island. In the dream where I am an island, I grow green with hope. I'd like to end there. Thank you. I'll finish with a poem that's about cuddling. Y'all know cuddling's my favorite thing. Poetry's good, but cuddling beats it every time. There's so many poems that I could have written that never got written because I was busy laid up with somebody. Just thinking about it brings joy, especially when it's cold on the morning like this, baby. The snuggles get good, huh? Whew. Stand. Peace on this planet, or guns glowing hot. We lay there together as if we were getting something done. It felt like planting a garden or planning a meal for a people who still need feeding. all that touching or barely touching, not saying much, not adding anything, the cushion of it, the skin and occasional sigh, all seemed like work worth mastering. I'm sure somebody died while we made love. Somebody killed somebody black. I thought then of holding you as a political act. I may as well have held myself. We didn't stand for one thought, didn't do a damn thing. And though you left me, I'm glad we didn't. Thank y'all so much. Thank you. Sweet. If I can get my stuff, thank you, Suzanne. Hi. Hey, Michael. Woo. I did that without being blown away.
I have an important announcement about a van in the parking lot across the street that's blocking people from coming in. It's a Florida licensed Nissan white van, and the license plate is JEU T91. So if that's you, could you please move your van? Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Let's give it up one more time for Jericho Brown, please. Some of you who've been here to the seminar before, I talk a lot about Key West history. Some of you may know I'm a historian. I wrote a book about the history of the Jewish community in Key West. And Key West is, it's a tourist town that sort of sells its history. I mean, the history in Key West is kind of part of the commodity that brings folks here. And something I really, learned acutely in my research is how much of Key West's black history remains invisible. It's not part of the history that Key West has told often enough. If you hopefully in the middle of our program book this year, you see there's an insert that just kind of scratches the surface of the really extraordinary black history in Key West and some of the early political leaders from the 19th century whose names are not well known enough in Key West today. So, a couple months ago, I was talking with the Shavers family, this wonderful family that's up here. We got Gina Burgeon over there, Vic Shavers here, mom and dad, and their 3 kids, Max, Lindsay, and Sydney. And I was talking with them a little bit about some projects they're working on. They're doing a lot to kind of bring that black history, make it more visible here in Key West. They've got a show that's up right now at the studios of Key West. There are other efforts going on at the same time. There's a show up right now at the Custom House Museum that I know some of y'all went to the opening for last night. So there are lots of things going on to tell the story of black history in Key West. And when I talked to the Shavers family a couple of months ago, I was just really struck by their story. Which it occurred to me it's a family story, it's a Key West story, and it's a very important American story as well. And so I asked them if they would be willing to come on our stage and tell you a little bit about what they're working on, about their family history, about their story. And I'm just really honored to have you all here today. Thank you so much. And please give a warm welcome for the Shavers family.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Arlo. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. As Arlo said, I'm Gina Burgeon, and I'm so happy to introduce my family to you.
Gina, can I just slip this on here for you? There you go. All right.
You guys, I had a naked mic. Sort of like Duval Street. But anyway, so I'd like to introduce you to my family, or our family. We have my husband, Vic Shavers. We've been married for 32 years. 32 years. I have my son, Max Shavers, who continues this Shavers name. I'm sure everyone's happy about that. He is the baby, or the youngest. I have my daughter, Lindsay Shavers. And we have our oldest daughter, Sydney Shavers. So before we begin, I just want to thank Arlo and Nan for inviting us to be here today. It's an incredible opportunity to share with you. So our journey to this stage, as Arlo said, began with a conversation, but it sort of began with a question that was posed by the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. And the question was, what does the Dirty South mean to you? Now, if that question were being asked today, it would actually mean that food truck over here that's serving food, because it's called the Dirty South, ironically. But the answer, my children here decided to answer that question with a video called Southernmost, about their experiences here in Key West. And of course, the folks in Key West are very, very excited about Key West. So Nan wrote an article that went out on the NPR network, and everyone here started buzzing, and they voted, and the video won first place at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. So when we heard that this literary seminar would be celebrating Black voices, we couldn't help but try to get involved among all of the other things that we do outside of our state, which is actually Virginia. I live in Richmond, Virginia with Vic.
I live in Washington, D.C.
I live in Chicago.
And I live in Charlottesville, Virginia.
So we do not live together anymore. So imagine what it's like trying to pursue the preservation of Black history here in Key West from miles and miles away. Our Key West family story begins 180 years ago in Virginia, where we currently live, with really 13 people, but one direct descendant that we focused on to really expand our research, and his name was Peter Shavers. Our story of Peter and his 10 brothers and one sister, or he had 9 brothers and 1 sister, is one of bravery and resilience and freedom, and most of all, family. But our story is not unique, and it's not an anomaly. It's just visible, thanks to people like you who allow us to tell that story. Key West, on the other hand, has always been a very unique place. It's a southern city that was Union-controlled in the Confederate state of Florida during the Civil War. It was a city of both freedom and slavery for Black people before emancipation. And it was one of the first cities to celebrate Jubilee after emancipation, basically 24 days after. And it was a city of great prosperity for Blacks during the late 1800s. So I'm sure you're all wondering how we were able to convince 3 young adults to be here to talk about history. So I am going to let them tell you.
Our Key West story started with touristy things: the beach, palm trees, and sea on America's southernmost key. Reunions and visits with family, margaritas, comforters, key lime pie, pirate culture and sunsets, and walks down Duval Street. Nothing deep.
Visits to the island were always an adventure, so we created Conkhead, our personal guide, who evolved from a pirate to an explorer over time. because the more we learned, the more we refined.
Then our Papa Victor shared some genealogy, and Shavers Lane, our very own street, and the story of Peter Shavers and his friend Minty T, that sparked our beautiful odyssey to discover ourselves in our Key West family tree, and to explore more than ever before, to dive deep.
So, Lindsay, why do you think it's important that we're here today?
We want people to know that Black people are here in Key West and have been here from the very beginning. In fact, where we're sitting right now was once Bahama Village, and the land was owned by Black families in the community. So we just want to bring visibility to the Black Key West community.
So, Vic, tell me how the Shavers got to Key West.
Well, we can actually trace our family history back over 300 years, and they were all free back then. In fact, we can trace it back to 1721 with a woman named Rebecca. The first Key West Shavers family was, as you mentioned earlier, was a family of 13. A mother, a father, 10 brothers, 1 daughter, with one of the sons being Peter Shavers. They were people from Virginia. They lived in Bedford, Virginia, Halifax, and Milton. Milton is right outside of Charlottesville, not far from where we live now. They migrated to Key West in the 1840s.
Okay, so what do you think brought them to Key West?
Well, actually, we have no clue why they migrated to Key West in the 1840s. However, we knew the Shavers were laborers in Virginia. And at the time in the 1840s, the U.S. government were building 2 forts in Key West, Fort Jefferson and Fort Zachary Taylor. So we do believe they came down here to work on those forts.
And then another follow-up. So what did you use to confirm their existence, their relation to us, their freedom, and their movement here to Key West?
Well, we used a lot of different sources for our research. We used the Virginia Register of Free Negroes. We also used U.S. Census records. We used tax records, and we also used DNA studies.
Okay, and then another, just to supplement that, there are also lots of military records because, as we will discuss in a bit, these men served in the military, and that has been one of the richest sources of information for us, and probably for many Black families like ours. So, Lindsay, Sydney, and Max, what is your earliest memory of Key West?
I'll go first. My earliest memory is coming to Key West and staying in our grandparents' house in Bahama Village. It's a white house with blue shutters. It's been like that the whole time. And it's a conch-style house, so if you stand at the front door, you can see all the way back to the back door, and there was this long hallway. And I just remember coming to Key West, staying there, and it just felt like home.
Yeah, I remember that too. My earliest memory, though, is probably every time we came to Key West, we would visit Shavers Lane, and we would take a picture at Shavers Lane. And so I can see pictures of us growing up, taking those pictures, and I can distinctly remember some of the outfits that we wore in those pictures. So that's my earliest memory.
Okay. My earliest memory is going to a Cuban restaurant called El Bonet. It was my first time going there, and I got a dish called black beans and yellow rice. And later down the line, I learned that it was a Cuban dish, and our family, we have black beans and yellow rice as our Thanksgiving, meal, a part of our Thanksgiving meal every year, and it's one of my favorite, parts of Thanksgiving because it reminds me of Key West.
So, during the pandemic, Sydney and Lindsay, you moved to Key West. So tell me about it.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, Lindsay and I moved back to Richmond, and we were living in the house with our parents and our brother. And we thought, do we really want to ride out the pandemic in Richmond, Virginia? And we said no. And we thought, what better place to ride out the pandemic than Key West, Florida? And so we packed up our things and moved to Key West, and moved into our grandparents' house. And it was such a nice experience. We lived next to our cousin Bernice, across the street from our cousin Poppy. We also got involved in the community. I remember helping our cousin Bernice at the Juneteenth festival. And then we also, and I think most notably, recorded oral histories of some of the elders in Bahama Village. And it was great to record those histories because we've been able to reflect on them, listen to them, and make sure that they are forever in history.
How about you?
Sydney got it all. Yeah, so like Sydney said, we moved down here, and it was such a great experience. It honestly, coming down here and living in Key West made me appreciate the history a bit more, because a lot of the stories that we heard from our grandparents and just from others in the community, we were actually living, we were experiencing ourselves. So just how close-knit the community is, being next door to family, across the street from family, hanging out with them, learning about history firsthand from people who lived here all their lives and everything. So I thought it was great.
So Max, you didn't get to move to Key West during the pandemic because you were still in class. Virtually, of course. But you do come down for family reunions. How do you feel? How does it make you feel when you come down?
It makes me feel free, free to bike around the island, really enjoy, biking with my cousins, and really just get away from the outside world and explore, Key West.
So, Vic, you've lived in Key West before as well. I'm the only person who's never lived in Key West. So, Vic, you've lived in Key West. What was it like coming down to Key West for you?
Yes. My earliest memory of Key West was, let me back up to say that my father was a military officer. He served 28 years in the U.S. Army. And my earliest memory of coming to Key West was when we were living in New Jersey. And we came down to Key West for a summer vacation. And I can remember the night before we made the trip, my mother frying chicken for the trip down. I know a lot of people can relate to that. And then I can also remember the morning that we left, that my father put on his full military uniform for the trip down. It was many years later before I learned why he did that as we traveled through the South to Key West. But once I got to Key West, everything was great. We had a lot of fun. I remember playing basketball and baseball and shooting marbles with my cousins. I remember bike riding around the island. I also remember the annual cousin race down Elizabeth Street. We had it every year. I have two cousins that are exactly my same age as I was, and we would always have this race that my uncle would orchestrate, and basically we would run down the race, and the winner would get $20.
That's a lot of money.
In 1970, $20 was a lot of money.
But it was a fun race.
It was a fun race. It was fun times.
So, both of your parents are from Key West, right?
Yes, my father was born and raised in Key West. My mother moved with her family to Key West when she was a toddler in the 1940s. Her father, my grandfather, worked on the overseas highway, building the roads and bridges that connected the mainland of Florida to the Florida Keys.
And they were from?
They were originally from Alabama.
Alabama. So would you say that a lot of people have migrated to Key West from other parts of the country?
Yes, I would. I would definitely say that.
And I notice a lot of folks in the audience who are actually from Bahama Village. I'm sure you all would say that as well. The last little piece is, everyone didn't live in Bahama Village. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well, that is correct. My mother's side, the Harris family, actually started living, they originally lived in the Bahama Village, but they eventually moved to what they used to call, say, the graveyard, over by the graveyard, off right, and they lived on Elizabeth Street, yes.
Okay. So back to Lindsay. When did you start really appreciating the importance of Black history or Key West Black history?
Yeah, so it was definitely when we moved down here, appreciating the Black history of Key West. Of course, we've been researching and hearing stories all growing up. We've been coming down to Key West for visits, maybe a week at a time. But when Sydney and I actually moved down and we're living here and waking up every day, seeing Cousin Bernice in the morning, going on walks with her in the morning, going fishing with her, just being immersed in the community is when I really, really started to appreciate it.
Was it warmer?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely warmer than right now.
Then than it is today. I am up here shivering. I know you're seeing me like shake. And I'm from Virginia. I think it was, it was very cold when we left.
Yeah, it was
And
like
in
30
Chicago,
degrees.
it's very cold.
I think we brought the cold with us. But anyway, Sydney, when did you first start really appreciating the importance of Black history?
Yeah, so I would say it was when I was 15 years old. I actually created a documentary called Elvira's Eyes, and it was my journey doing genealogy research on my maternal third great-grandmother, so my mom's side of the family. And just the validation that I received from it made me feel like I was doing something good. I was making sure that I was documenting my family history. So I'd say that was my first experience appreciating it.
So Elvira did not live in Key West, but she lived in North Carolina and she had a Civil War history too. What made that important?
Yeah, I think what made that important was that she spent the first 28 years of her life as a slave and then as a freed person, but remained on the plantation where she was originally enslaved and worked there as a sharecropper. And I think that there's some significance to that because I don't think we'd normally think that people would do that. And I was happy to share it with my community, the Richmond community, and it was a part of Richmond, Virginia's sesquicentennial celebration, and also in the Black History Museum in Richmond.
And since this was my second great-grandmother, one thing that I would say is the only reason we even knew about her is because she lived so long. She was 106 years old, and I guess finally worthy of an interview. And so someone from the Hickory Daily Record interviewed her, and that article was passed down to me by my grandfather, so I gave it to her. So, Lindsay, of all that you've learned about Key West, Shaver's family, what resonates with you the most?
Yeah, it's the story of our third great-grandfather, Peter Shavers, and his 7 blood brothers is the story that resonates with me the most because it's an American story. And we actually wrote a poem called Boom to tell that story. So here it goes.
Boom. January 1st, 1863. it was announced that all enslaved people were free. January 27th, 1863, boom, the island's Black community celebrated Jubilee. February 10th, 1863, Key West, 2nd South Carolina Volunteers came to be. Most were newly freed, some were already free, like born free Virginian Peter Shavers and his 7 blood brothers, 8 of 126 Key West men. With roots throughout America's South, most volunteered to serve long before Colonel Morgan's order came out. February 16th, 1863, then boom, the 126 Key West men were swept up and loaded on the U.S. steamer Cosmopolitan, sailed away to Beaufort, South Carolina, to join their freshly freed brethren in pursuit of full freedom and justice for all. Abolitionist Colonel James Montgomery led them, a close friend of John Brown, the legend, with Colonels Higginson and Shaw and Harriet Tubman, the Kansas Jayhawker, and the 2nd flew high. They understood the mission General Saxton assigned, but they also followed their own dreams and minds. Lucky everyone's goals were aligned, the brave 2nd exceeded expectations in no time.
March 1863, boom. Together with Colonel Higginson's 1st South Carolina Volunteers, the 2nd recaptured Jacksonville and made it Union territory. Though their soldiers were small in number, their bravery earned praise and glory. Lincoln shouted them out because the 1st and 2nd gave Abe more clout to form the USCT and to recruit Black men and Black women to fight for their own freedom and basic human rights, for a united America under one flag. The few grew to 209,145 U.S. colored troops, with stories of bravery, with millions of descendants among us who value their legacies. June 1st through 3rd, 1863. Then boom, Montgomery, the 2nd, and Tubman went off script and executed a mission of their own. Montgomery's higher-ups were blown, probably why the raid on Combahee Ferry was spectacular, but is still little known. Nearly 800 bloodlines freed in one quick swoop by a woman, a white abolitionist, and a small Black troop. More saved souls that Harriet's fans can claim and add to her Underground Railroad fame.
June 3rd, 1863. Then boom, the 2nd received some well-deserved swag. A woman in Connecticut made them a regimental flag. But today, that flag's remnants reside in a South Carolina museum run by the Confederate side. But that day, accepting on his troops' behalf, Colonel Montgomery raised the flag and told his soldiers the flag symbolized the fact that you have a country and a home. The ground over which you march, the fields on which you fight are to be your own. April 9th, 1865, boom. The U.S. Civil War was won. American states united and became one. June 19th, 1865, done. U.S. slavery finally came to an end when word of freedom finally reached our Texas kin.
January 1st, 2023, 160 years post-emancipation, 3 members of the Shaver Soldiers, 6th generation, inspired by the 2nd's bravery and swag, and Key West, one human family nation, replicated the 2nd's regimental flag. to commemorate their historic contributions to uniting the states and expanding our Constitution. So, if you want to know where the flag is, I want you to know this one thing. Sydney and Lindsay had one assignment, and that was to bring the flag that hangs in the studios out of the trailer.
Right, it's in the trailer.
It's in the trailer. So we will bring it out later. But they made a regimental flag to commemorate the flag that was given to them, the 2nd South Carolina, by the folks, by this woman in Connecticut, in appreciation for their bravery. What about that for a... And our friends at the studios of Key West let us take the flag out of the exhibit last night. In the middle of the night, I see Jed out there. He is like, I let you take it out, and it's back there. But anyway, that just means that you have to go to the studios of Key West to see the exhibit. So I just have one more question, and then I think we can take wait, I don't know how we're doing on time.
I think 10 minutes.
10 minutes? We probably won't have time for questions, but I just have one last question of Max. Since you are a male descendant and carry the Shaver's name, how does it make you feel to know that you are a direct descendant of Peter Shavers?
It makes me feel honored and proud that I come from a family of hardworking men who fought for our country.
The flag! The flag! Okay.
Yeah, it just makes me want to do something special in the world and just work hard, just as hard as them, or maybe even harder. You know, just go hard at anything I do and just put all my effort in. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, I will read the last stanza again, since the flag miraculously appeared. January 1st, 2023, which is now, 160 years post-emancipation, 3 members. Or give it to Vic. Let Vic read it. Oh, Vic, you read it. I'll let Vic read it since I've already read it.
This is totally off script.
And then I need my notes back.
Okay. January 1st, 2023, 160 years post-emancipation, 3 members of the Shaver Soldiers' 6th generation, inspired by the 2nd's bravery and swag, in Key West's one human family nation. The 2nd regimental flag to commemorate the historic contributions uniting the states and expanding our Constitution.
So that is actually what the flag looks like. It's currently in the South Carolina Confederate Museum. And there's a video on YouTube that shows the flag and talks about it. And they talk about it being one of only a few remnants of Harriet Tubman's service in the United States Army, or the Union Army. So, can I have my notes back? I'm sorry. I know the second went off script, but so did we.
So do we want to open it up for questions? Or?
No, I think we're out of time.
We're out of time. Okay.
So, since we are running, we want to remain on time. I just want to say that as we close, I just want to stress that our Shavers family, we have time for a couple of questions? Okay, well, we have time for a couple of questions.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I guess I have to call on the people.
That's okay. Actually, we're going to ask that you please stand. If you have a question, we'll bring the mic to
Okay.
you.
I have a question. If this was the regimental flag of the Union soldiers, why is it in a Confederate museum?
You know,
Yeah.
we really don't know. And as a matter of fact, we have a Facebook group. And our Facebook group, our family Facebook group, actually shares history. I know we are like history nerds, the whole family. And we share stories, and this was one of the stories that appeared. It showed a gentleman in the Confederate Museum talking about it from the perspective of it being an artifact from Harriet Tubman's service in the Union Army. If you recall, Harriet Tubman was not really able to fight, nor were any of the women who served the Union Army for free. But Harriet Tubman, because of all that she did, applied for a pension.
Right.
And all of that pension documentation documents all of the work she did. I mean, she was trying to get her money. So she told them everything. She said, I did this, I did that, I spied, I went to, Cumbie Ferry. Well, that was off script, but we did all of these things, and I need to get my money. And people came to her defense. You had military officers, a lot of white military officers who would be believed at the time, talk about all of her service and the service of the men. So we learned about our family by learning about Harriet Tubman because they fought alongside each other. And I think that's such a unique story because I don't think many people in Key West even know that we have that connection because they got swept away from Key West and mustered in South Carolina. And they were called the 2nd South Carolina even before Abraham Lincoln gave permission to have black men fight as Union troops. There was the 1st South Carolina, the 2nd from our Key West men, and the 54th that everyone knows because of the movie Glory.
Is the film that you created available for us to view?
Yes, if you go over to the studios of Key West,
Yes.
it's there. We don't have a film about this.
We do have in the exhibition at the studios of Key West our southernmost film, which won the VMFA Dirty South competition, as well as 2 oral histories. Mr. Coffee Butler's oral history, snippets from that interview we did with him, and then Miss Julia Campbell's interview.
I have a question about your research. A lot of black families have artifacts. They have free papers, things like that. But tell me some of the modern techniques you used. I heard you mention military service. What are some of the options that are now available to black families who really want to dig deep into their roots?
Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, there's actually a DNA study that is being done for people who have the name Shavers. This is black people who have the name Shavers, spelled Shavers, which is their spelling. Shavers, which is pronounced Shavers, Chavers, Chavis, Chavis. There's some other names.
Spellings, yeah.
But they're trying to connect all of these names because it appears that the name Shavers was a misspelling because, all of the way that things were written over the years. Even in their family, their name went from Chavis to Shavers, and though we document the real relations of those people,
I think now all of that DNA study is helping them piece things together. And people like Vic and Max are important because they're men, and we're able to follow the name. One of the people that they're related to is Robert Gabriel. And remember, we said that they had one daughter. Her name was Winnie Shavers Gabriel. And that is why Robert Gabriel is a relative, but he has a different last name. It is not Shavers.
And for those that are trying to find more primary sources, even secondary sources, I found it was really helpful to go to the local libraries in whatever county your family is from. So when I was researching my maternal third great grandmother, I went to the Catawba County Library, and they had a specific like history section on the residents in that county. And so that's a good way to kind of tap in and see if you can find any primary resources about your relatives.
I also, randomly, I was in a master's program. I was getting my master's in data science, and I was looking for data sets to use for one of my projects. And I went on this Virginia database that just had a collection of data sets in Virginia. And they had some interesting data sets around who was recorded as being freed in Virginia. They had records, or they had data sets basically detailing all of the freed blacks who were sent over to Liberia. It was just so interesting. So I ended up Googling or searching for shavers in those data sets, and I ended up finding some shavers in there. So really just taking any opportunity to search your last name and see what comes up.
And then Ancestry.com is helpful because there are lots of shavers, and they are still here on this island, and we all have the same data, the same information, and many of them have taken DNA tests. So not only is it paper data, but it's also genetic data as well.
That's the time we have. Can we have a big thank you to the shavers for being here?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have just one last thing to say, just sort of as a parting statement, and that is just to reiterate that our story is really not unique. All of our families have stories to tell. They just need to be told.
It's okay.
Ooh, they cut the mic.
Oh my gosh, we got the mic cut.
Go, hurry up.
Okay, so on behalf of our family, we want to thank our friends and family in Bahama Village and on this island, Black authors, and historians everywhere for telling Black stories with accuracy, authenticity, inclusivity, visibility, and love.